Chapter 11 In the House of a Ghost. The hut was small and the door was so low that even I had to bow my head to enter. In the center of the room stood a small iron grate where a charcoal fire smoldered, and on a tripod above it was an iron kettle from which a stream of steam exploded, promising tea. The hut was cluttered with all sorts of worthless possessions. In one corner was a bundle of rags I guessed was the owner's bedding. We shall catch fleas or worse, I thought as I kneeled down beside the charcoal brazier to warm my hands. From the top of the mountain, all roads lead in only one direction, down. Our host was preparing tea. He was moving in little abrupt movements like a monkey, I thought. And from the bottom of the valley, that way can only be upward, I countered, wanting to show that I had understood what he referred to. The way of a holy man seeking truth and the way of a samurai are not the same. The little man handed us teacups. Strangely, they were not chipped and were valuable, I thought. It is best when the vessel and what it contains are of the same quality. We are not samurai, merely messengers for Lord Akiyama on our way to Kofuchu. I drank the tea. It had the perfect amount of bitterness to refresh you and was warm rather than hot. You live by yourself, grandfather, Yoshitoki stated rather than asked, and then added, Do you not find it lonely? The ancient man laughed, and to my surprise, he had a full set of teeth. I often have company. Up here near the clouds, even my miserable hut seems like a mansion to someone seeking shelter. Who would enter my low door to squat on an earthen floor and partake of my wretched food if I lived in a village? You are wise, grandfather, I agreed and smiled, but have you no son that would give you a home? The old man shook his head and again bared his teeth in a grin. I noticed that two of the upper teeth were long like a dog's. Sons marry and have families of their own, and when the old ones are asleep, the young ones begrudge them the corner they take up. You have not much use for your fellow men, Yoshitoki laughed. Not all children wish their parents in their graves. No, those who have lost them when young, the old man shot a quick glance at the two of us, can afford to proclaim that they love them. You, he pointed a crooked finger at me, you cannot remember yours, and you, he moved his finger to point at Yoshitoki, lost your father first and your mother not long ago. How did you know that? I gasped, for it was true, Yoshitoki's mother had died that winter. The old man did not answer, but instead asked if we wished to eat. Suddenly he became as businesslike as an innkeeper, even telling us the number of coppers our meal would cost. We did not bargain, but agreed to his terms, which were not unreasonable. Putting more charcoal on the grate and fanning it until he got a clear flame, he began to cook. I glanced at Yoshitoki, and he winked at me. I wondered if the old man were a demon, not a human being at all. Both bandits and demons in one day. I smiled to myself and stretched my legs. I was getting sleepy, and reluctantly I felt my eyes closing and my head falling forward. I must have slept for the better part of an hour, for when I woke, the food was ready. The old man handed me a black lacquerware bowl containing rice mixed with mushrooms and mountain herbs. As I ate, I watched our host. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, he was dirty and his fingernails were repellent and long to look at, but his eyes were alive and clever, and I felt that we were in no danger from him. I told him about the two monks we had met and warned him against them should they visit him. The old man laughed disdainfully. Obviously he felt no fear, but then to live here all alone in the mountain path showed that he was no coward. Since you knew, grandfather, that my parents were dead, can you tell the future too? Asked Yoshitoki. When the old man did not reply immediately, he added, When will Lord Takeda rule Japan? Never, the hermit snapped. He will die undefeated, but he will never rule Japan. The old man handed us each a bowl of miso soup. It was hot and warmed my insides. A wind had sprung up, and the flimsy walls of the hut could not keep out all the cold night air. It will be Lord Oda Nobunaga who will win, I said, not to the man, but to Yoshitoki. He, too, will fall. The old man bared his teeth. The butterfly in spring does not know it will die in autumn. Intoxicated by its own beauty, it flutters from flower to flower, thinking that its life will last forever. How do you know all this? I asked. I did not doubt his words, I merely sought an explanation. Where can one read what is to come? In the stars? In men's heart their future is written, the old man replied. And what is written in mine? Yoshitoki asked, staring stubbornly at our host. Who knows? The old man looked away, refusing to meet my friend's gaze. You do, I think, but that does not matter, Yoshitoki nodded. My friend here, will he too die young, or will he live to dandle a grandson on his knees? He will live to be old. The hermit looked sourly at me for a moment as if he regretted the fact, and then added maliciously, but he will leave no one to carry on his name. Will I become a samurai? I asked, holding my breath as I waited for his answer. Oh, you will wear the two swords, both of you, as your fathers did, but it will do you as little good as it did them. The old man rose and went to the door to look out. Soon winter will be here, snow will cover the mountains, and the footprints of men will be rare. What is the weather like? Yoshitoki had risen and was peering out behind the old man's back. I think it will be pleasant, he said, answering his own question. As soon as it is light enough to travel, let us start, I suggested, for I was still afraid that the bandits might catch up to us, and I felt far from certain we would be lucky in encountering them a second time. If you want to sleep, I shall waken you when the first light covers the peaks. The old man indicates the floor as our bed. When we lay down, he brought us some old straw raincoats to use as covers. It seemed that I had just fallen asleep when the old man woke us. He offered me a cup of soup and a rice ball, which I ate greedily. The light outside was still gray, but the mountaintops had a gold shine that promised well for the day. We paid the old man, and he carefully put away our coins. When we mounted our horses, he held the stirrup for Yoshitoki and bowed deeply as we left. I looked back as we rode away. The old hermit was returning to his hut, and I noticed he walked so bent over that it was almost as if he were walking on all fours. When we reached Kofuchi the next day and delivered our message, we stayed in the old room in Lord Akiyama's mansion for 2 nights, and then started out on the return journey to Iida Castle. By an unspoken agreement, we planned to enter the pass on the summit this time in the middle of the day. Neither of us had any wish to spend another night with the old man in the lonely hut. When we reached the summit, we dismounted and tied our horses, feeling that we at least had to pay the old man a visit. To our surprise, the hut seemed more of a ruin than it had on the night when we stayed there. The door that I had seen the old man open and close was now gone, and so was the hermit himself. The place looked as if it had not been inhabited for a long time. The little grate that held the charcoal fire was still there, but it lay on its side. I found one of the cups in which we had been served tea, chipped but still unbroken. I held it carefully in my hand and decided to keep it. He has left, Yoshitoki said without conviction in his voice. No, I replied, he was never here. Yoshitoki nodded and sniffed the air. Can you smell it? A fox or a wolf has been here. A vixen can turn herself into a woman, I exclaimed, but not into an old man. He was a demon, Yoshitoki's voice shook. Or a badger, I suggested, remembered the old man's teeth and long claw-like fingernails. Badger, fox, or demon, but not human. Yoshitoki grinned. We will have something to tell when we are back in Iida Castle. We stopped at the first house we came to, and inquired about the old man who lived in the pass. We were told, as we expected, that an old man lived there once, but he had died a long time ago. His grave, they told us, was at the back of the hut beside a large boulder. We looked at each other and smiled, for not as granted to everyone to be able to say they had been fed and slept in the house of a ghost.